That early morning, Mama Efe quietly followed MadamRonke, street after street, corner after corner. Then suddenly MadamRonke stopped in front of a strange-looking compound. And when she saw where MadamRonke entered, her whole body froze. Her eyes widened in shock. Her heart started beating. She held her wrapper tight, turned around and ran back home with fear. Once upon a time, in the busy city of Lagos, there lived a woman whose name echoed through every corner of the city. Her name was MadamRonke. If you had not heard of MadamRonke, it simply meant you had not lived long enough in Lagos. Her restaurant was not just famous, it was extraordinary. People from all over Lagos, both the rich and the poor, would line up every day just to buy a plate of her food. Even men in suits with expensive cars would park their cars down the road just to stand in the queue. From the early hours of the morning, MadamRonke's restaurant would be filled with hungry souls. There were queues that stretched down the street. Even married men would abandon hot meals at home and run to MadamRonke's restaurant with empty plates. Some of them had started insulting their wives at home, saying their food tasted like poison, that it could never smell like MadamRonke's stew. Some even poured their wives' food on the floor, shouting that they were going to MadamRonke's restaurant to eat like kings. When plates ran out in the restaurant, you had to wash your own plates or wait for someone else to finish eating. Sometimes, you would see grown men, respectable men, fighting over plates and washing with speed just to get their turn. Because once you eat from MadamRonke's pot, you would always come back for more. The food was too good. People even said it tasted better than their mother's food. MadamRonke was living large. Her house was the kind of house you only see in magazines or movies. A big, beautiful mansion with flowers at every corner and a gate that looked like a palace gate. She had housemaids in fine uniforms that were opening doors and running errands. Her cars were many, from a shiny red Benz to a black Jeep. But even with all her money, she still came to her restaurant every day to cook the food by herself. She said no one else must touch her pot. Even people from outside Lagos would plan a weekend trip to Lagos just to eat her food and carry takeaway back to their towns. Her phone never stopped ringing. People wanted her to cater for their weddings, birthdays, naming ceremonies, even burials. But on that same street where MadamRonke's restaurant was always full, there was another woman who also sold food. Her name was Mama Efe. Before MadamRonke started her business, people used to rush Mama Efe's food. Her shop was always bubbling. But ever since MadamRonke came, everything changed. Mama Efe's shop became empty. Nobody came there again. Her benches were always dry. Her coolers remained full from morning till night. Even people that used to eat her food before now walked past her like she didn't exist. She would sit there from morning till evening, watching people running into MadamRonke's restaurant. The same people who used to eat her own food before. One day, as she was sitting quietly at her shop, she said to herself, "This thing is not ordinary. I must find out what this woman is doing that is bringing her this kind of customers." So the next morning, very early, she stood close to MadamRonke's compound and waited. After some time, she saw MadamRonke coming out of her mansion. She was walking down the street. Mama Efe followed her quietly. She didn't want MadamRonke to notice. She followed her from street to street, but before she knew it, she lost track of her. She looked around. MadamRonke was nowhere to be found. She was surprised. She waited for some minutes and then returned home, disappointed. MadamRonke's restaurant kept booming. More people kept rushing her food. Even people from outside Lagos were now coming just to eat at her restaurant. Meanwhile, Mama Efe's restaurant continued to die. She didn't even have one customer anymore. Her shop began to look like a deserted desert. One day, she made up her mind to follow MadamRonke again. "This time, I will not stop. I will follow her again and find out what is really going on," she said to herself. That early morning, Mama Efe quietly followed MadamRonke, street after street, corner after corner. Then suddenly, MadamRonke stopped in front of a strange-looking compound. It was an old, quiet bungalow. The gate was half open. The building looked like a place nobody should be entering at that hour of the morning. But before she could even think too much, MadamRonke walked inside like someone who had done it many times before. Mama Efe stood far back, hiding, and when she saw where MadamRonke entered, Her whole body froze. Her eyes widened in shock. Her heart started beating. She held her wrapper tight, turned around, and ran back home with fear. That thing she saw that morning shook her to her bone. That was when she knew the food people were rushing every day was not ordinary. Later that day, MadamRonke's restaurant was already full as usual. Customers were fighting for space in the queue. Some had even eaten 4 plates and were already waiting for the 5th. Big men were laughing and ordering more. The whole street was filled with the smell of MadamRonke's stew and jollof rice. Then, Mama Efe walked in. She stood in the middle of the restaurant and shouted, "Do you people even know what you are eating?" People turned and looked at her, confused. Then Mama Efe raised her voice and started talking. "Let me tell you what this woman has been feeding all of you with. I followed her earlier this morning. I saw it with my 2 eyes. She walked through the back street and entered a mortuary. I saw her with my 2 eyes, bathing those corpses, using her hands to wash them from head to toe, collecting the water into a black bowl. And that is the same water she brings here to cook all this food you people are busy fighting over. That's why once you eat her food, no other food tastes good again. That's why some of you have been insulting your wives at home, calling their food tasteless, not knowing that it's the water of the dead that has charmed your tongues." Before she could even finish, the whole place scattered. People jumped from their seats. Plates began to fall to the ground. Men were opening their mouths wide, trying to vomit. Some even put their fingers deep into their throats just to vomit food they had devoured hours ago. Others ran outside, spitting and vomiting all over the place. People were coughing, sweating, and panicking. The restaurant turned into complete chaos. And as all this was happening, MadamRonke stood at the corner. Her face was filled with fear. She knew her secret was out. She burst into tears and dropped to her knees. "Please forgive me. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. When I opened my restaurant, nobody was buying from me. Every day, I would cook and cook, but all the food would spoil. I cried. I suffered. Then someone introduced me to this method. They said I should try it. I didn't plan to do it for long. I just wanted to have customers. I just wanted to take care of my children." She wept louder, but the crowd was not listening. People were too angry. Some had already started throwing stones at her. Some ran into her shop and began scattering things. Before you know it, people set MadamRonke's restaurant on fire. They beat the living daylight out of her. They kicked her to the ground and began stoning her. And right there, in front of the same restaurant where people rushed her food, MadamRonke died. No matter how desperate life becomes, never use evil to chase success, because what you gain through darkness will one day destroy you in broad daylight. Shortcuts may look easy at first, but they always end in regret. When you use charm, blood, or wickedness to rise, your downfall will come with shame, pain, and no mercy. What you build with clean hands will last, but what you build with evil will crumble and bury you inside it. Let this story be a warning. Do not sell your soul just to be praised. Do not sacrifice others just to be seen. Because when the truth finally comes out, even the people who once clapped for you will be the ones to stone you. Hi guys, thank you for watching this story. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe, drop a comment, and share with someone who loves good storytelling. Expect new stories every Sunday evening, so make sure you subscribe and turn on your post notifications so you never miss any of them. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.